Rashid Lombard is 'n fotojoernalis wat al van die 80's af foto's neem. Wat beteken hy het al baie gesien onder meer die struggle. En sy foto's is nou 'n tuiste gevind by UWK waar daar oor die 500,000 negatives in die argief aangehou gaan word. Hy kuier vanaand by my hier op die KLOP couch om te gesels oor die stories agter al daai famous foto's. Assalamu alaykum Rashid, baie welkom hierso.
Walaikum salam, my brother.
500,000 negatives. Nou kan ek al hoor hoe sê van die jong spanne voor die TV vir hulle oor. Wat is 'n negative, mami?
Ek hoor, ja. Well, you know, it is, well, a negative is equivalent to a digital camera. Everyone knows digital. Before digital, there was the analog, the celluloid, and that is what it's all about. A lot of children know from their parents that they used to take the instamatic camera,
Yeah.
and you have it processed, and the full comes back. That is the negative.
Van watter ouderdom af en in watter plek se strate het Rashid Lombard sy eerste kamera gedra, sy eerste foto's gevat?
Well, you know, I went to high school, Witwatersrand High, in Wynberg, and I was kind of politicized there. And part of the courses there was art. And because we had a little magazine, I was always taking pictures with the Instamatic. And I think that grew on me over the years and wanted to study it. But it was a time that there wasn't any courses I could study photography. So it became a hobby of mine for many years. And hence my archives are so large.
Extensive, ja.
Ja.
As daar enige fotograaf uit daai tyd uit wat jy spesifiek dopgehou het, whether dit nou iemand was wat in die koeranten gepublished is of in magazines of 'n uncle miskien in die community?
Well, you know, I taught myself a lot by reading, and that's reading and looking at pictures, newspapers, when it was so popular, and that's how you can still learn to look at how to compose pictures. But I loved landscapes and I loved sunsets, and living in Cape Town and Table Mountain, and I used to hike a lot, and I was fascinated with scenes long before I got involved working as a photojournalist, but documentary has been a big part of my portfolio. I grew up in Athlone, and of course Athlone's next to Langa, and that's where the music scene is. So that was the migration between the Beverly Lounge in Athlone and the Civic Centre in Langa. And a lot of my pictures started with music and jazz.
Noem van die musicians se name?
There's
Ek maar die obvious noem Abdullah.
No, not besides Abdullah.
Yeah?
Abdullah was always there. Ezra Nukana, great friends with Basil Menembekutsi, with Robert Jensen, with Mankunku Ngozi, and so we can go on. And they became my friends, and together we honed the politics of music, because they were already politicized. You know, music was the binding factor. There was no color. You know, when people came together, we went into places where you couldn't go, but the music drew us together.
Maar daar is ook foto's van mense wat bekende skrywers geword het uit daai era uit, jou sogenaamde drum generation, James Matthews vir argumente.
Matthews, yeah, Richard Reeves, James Matthews. James Matthews, we call him Sir James Matthews. We sirred him. He's my mentor, my teacher. Peter Clark, the other one. So I was fortunate to grow up amongst an older generation, and James Matthews introduced me to Nina Simone, for example.
Wow.
You know, and of course Nina Simone is a poet on her music, and it was a driving force. We had Mr. Colby,
Vincent Colby?
Vincent Colby, who was a librarian in Athlone in Q-Town, and we used to get all the band books from him. Hy het gesmoggel, the band books. So it was a whole it was like that early days of each one teach one.
En dit in die agtergrond, maar in die voorgrond was dit die politics van die 80's veral.
Ja.
wat jy op film vasgelê het.
Yeah. It was particular after I always liked photography, so I got, and I had to study, so I got involved into architectural drafting, and I worked myself through the company, Maart Roberts, to be their chief industrial photographer. Ek het my maar ingesmokkel. But I was good. And through that, it got me into full-time photojournalism. And that's how I could document from the early 80s. Our struggle was led by youth. It's a very important the youth of 1980-82. It reminds me about Iran. It was the youth that started the revolution.
Yeah.
And I followed that thread of the youth. But just ordinary people, ordinary people, ordinary citizens that understood, they couldn't discuss politics, but they understood what is just and what is unjust.
Hoekom is dit belangrik dat jy nou hierdie archiving projek met IWK en die support van die departement van kuns en kultuur begin?
It's about the history. Our past guides our present to the future. And unfortunately, there's a large number of heritage resources that is undocumented, digitized, and might not have a chance of being digitized. There's a lack of purpose-built facilities. And I think most important is how the digitized images and information is used for further education. Hence, with my taking it to UWC is close to my heart. And people say it's their home. It's not their home. They're the custodians. That it can't sit there and get dust. So my next phase now is going in with a team, and I like the team. I'm going to get these young people that we're going to train, young black youth, about digitizing, but all aspects of preservation. So the next phase, 3 to 4 years of my life, I'm going to transfer all my skills and sit back and identify the images. Taking it further, the facility there will become a home of other archives. Baie critical.
Yeah.
It's people like Peter Mackenzie, what happens to his work.
Yeah.
The late Willie de Klerk, he was our mentor. Where's his work? So it's the narrative with the image. So now writers come into it because we got to tell the story, not just a caption.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of new history, but it's creating new jobs now, new career paths. So I'm very excited with that.
So ek is net so excited, man. Nou as ek sê dat ons tyd op is, wat is hy een foto wat jy gesê kyk ouens as ek meer die dag is, sit daai foto op my graf.
Op my graf.
Nee, nou alleen man, ek ben daai tyd. Een foto wat jy vashou en sê.
Robbie Jansen, but let me tell you
Ons het nie meer tyd nie, maar sê gou vinnig.
Okay. Sy naam is Ernest Cole.
Yeah.
The man who photographs the house of bondage.
Yeah.
And into storing, he got himself reclassified from colored to black. He fooled the authorities and they gave him a passport and he left the country in 1962 with all his negatives and the book House of Bondage. He never came home. But I met him.
Foto van hom.
I met him. I went to find him in New York. And first thing he said to me, thanks God, it's not another student.
Laat ons op 'n ander dag bietjie meer daaroor gesels. Maar Rashid, baie dankie vir jou tyd vanaand. So kom ons nou ongelukkig aan die einde van die show, maar ek is Vrydag en Saterdag by die kykNET op Oudtshoorn. Vrydag 4:00 daar by die Absa kuierkamer en Saterdag 10:00 die oggend by die Oriel College in Springbokweg. Stuk uit man. En kom praat saam so. As ek jou nie haat sien, dan sien ek jou mos weer ander weekend Woensdag. Wees lekker met jouself tot daai tyd toe en wees lekker met al die ander mense.